Welcome everyone to the Finance and Performance meeting for the 31st of August 2023. Welcome to everyone online live streaming, and to open, I'd ask we all stand for the council prayer.
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that we will give us wisdom and guidance as we will conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
Amen. Call for any apologies? Oh, thank you. We've received apologies from Leanne. I'll move that they be. I'd like to move those. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Carter. I have not been notified of any public forum. Is that correct? Okay. And does anyone have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare now? If not, the normal procedure is if we're discussing matters and a conflict arises, please raise it at that time. Item number 5, confirmation of order of business. I don't think there's any new items to be added, and the order is unchanged as per the order paper. Moving on to confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting. We'll just go through those, and if you can just call those out as we go through. So page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Can I have a mover or a mover or seconder to confirm those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Karkin. Thank you, Councillor Carter. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Follow-up items. There's just one item remaining there. Are there any items anyone would like to discuss now?
I'd just like to question that item as being completed when there's still work to be done. On fixing the sump or something, making the pipe bigger or whatever to rectify the problem.
Oh no, have you got any comments around that?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much. We're getting to the point where we think we know what the problem is. The resolve of the problem could take quite a long time. So we can leave it on there, but it will be on there for quite some time. If you're happy with it, I'm happy to leave it there. But
I think if it's flicked off the page, then we lose sight of it, even if it is ongoing.
Okay.
That's my view anyway. But
Happy to, with that, we change that back
thank
to in process.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay. Item number 8, Chair's report. Nothing to report. Let's say, in essence, we're trying to get through a lot today, so just moving right along. Item number 9, reports of information. Sorry, beg your pardon. 8, reports for decision. What is So this we're talking today to the event sponsorship scheme. We have adjusted our distribution down from 50,000 in previous years to 25,000 as per our annual plan. One comment I would like to make is when we receive this on Smarty Grants, what I think would be helpful is if we get this table of what the applicants are before we start, because we're going in not knowing how much over or under we would be. But if we had that table in front of us, which we don't get till later, that would be really helpful. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Yes.
Yeah, I went back and asked Kezia for the information as well, so I could sort of relate it to what money we had, etc. But I did my own tables.
Yeah. Would that be possible?
I'm sure it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay. So, so just on the basis that there are some changes, I think there was some discussion that was wanting to be had. Should we just bring that to the table now, please? Has anyone got any concerns about this process or anything they'd like to bring to the table? Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. I made a conscious decision not to take part in this process. It's sort of a passive protest. I was concerned about the uncomfortable gap between what council is now offering to what are genuine, valid, long-standing, successful district events. I question what council signifies to our community when we only offer a significantly reduced and miserly amount. I also was concerned about the pressure councillors were put under in the annual plan process to trim the budgets. I feel as though $25,000 for event schedules, and there's another round to go, is just simply not what I feel council should be about. So I didn't take part. I think there are other areas within council where we are spending a lot of money that could more likely go to something like this, which is more community focused. So I protested and didn't take part. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, look, council made a decision here. There was an annual plan round. There was a huge amount of conversation, and really, you may not appreciate it, but in effect, it's a minority position. And whether you want to protest or not is up to you, but you do not have the scope, in my opinion, to be able to change this. The budgets are what the budgets are, and I would have to say that we went through a very harsh process around affordability, and there were a lot of requests from staff for things that they would have liked that we had to trim. And as part of that funding round, we also went through a process of what is discretionary funding, and this budget was attached. It is what it is.
Any other comments? Councillor Carmichael.
Probably just to expand from my perspective, that I support Councillor Loudon's position on this, that we have heard from the community loud and clear that, you know, the $25,000 that we've now allocated in this annual plan round is not going to be enough for their demands, which is going to make some really tricky decisions. Can appreciate that we may not be able to change the budget, but probably worth acknowledging that it is going to be a very tricky round of decisions that we've got to make here as a result of, you know, the better part of $50,000 worth of applications for what is round one of two with a $25,000 budget.
Councillor Vaughan.
Yeah, I just want to support Mayor Watson in his comments, because when we started our budget round, we were looking at a 14 or 15% or more rate rise, and we've got that down under 10%, which, you know, something had to give, and a lot of things have given, and this is one of them, unfortunately. Yeah, and we've made our decision. We can't keep going round and round and go, oh, second guessing ourselves, you know, we've got to back ourselves, I reckon. So, yeah, and we've got 8,000 ratepayers that are paying less. You know, that's supporting the community as much as anything.
Sure. Okay. So, however, there is the possibility that this goes through again for consideration in the long-term plan. Do we need a motion for that to happen?
No.
Okay. So, obviously going forward, it will come back to the table for discussion, and we can, discuss it further at that time. Okay.
Just,
Yes.
Madam
sorry.
Chair, just a couple of things in terms of the process. First of all, Smarty Grants is great, but one of the difficulties within Smarty Grants is that if there is an event that you have a conflict on, there's no really easy process to say that you've dealt with that event. So literally, because you haven't filled in each individual line, it keeps coming back to you to say you haven't done one of the tasks that was assigned to you. But I don't.
Could you not put zero in?
You can't just put zero in.
Oh, okay.
Because it says you've got to put a figure in and so on. So there's just a very small anomaly that I would like looked at. But I also think that there's potentially a discussion here in terms of funding around whether money should be left for round two. Because we have advertised that there will be 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I can appreciate the tightness of this, but my personal opinion is that we should leave some money for the second round because we've advertised it as such.
So, sorry, Councillor Carter, you had a comment?
Regarding conflict of interest, you can go through it and put zero in. I've actually done it, I have done it with one of these events.
Well, I tried and it wouldn't work for me.
You just keep putting not recommended.
Yeah, but
Oh, that's
okay,
another one.
no, but if you put 0 in there,
Changes the average.
it then changes all the maths.
Changes the average.
It changes the averages, which is unfair in itself because you're actually expressing a position. That's the difficulty.
I think Kezia's got something to contribute.
Yeah, so when you do the assessment at the top, it says, do you have a conflict of interest, yes or no? One of the things is that when you come into this room, you can obviously declare that conflict of interest as well, and we can remove any $0 if you like, or change as needed.
Awesome. Okay, so then any discussion around the second round and availability of money? Are there any comments want to be made there? Councillor Carpin?
I think I'd like to see us go through this first lot of applicants and see what the recommendations are, and then balance that against the $25,000 that's available across both rounds. And then we may be able to come back and go, actually, we're not leaving enough for round 2, or we're leaving too much for round 2.
I'd like to see us just cut the 25 and half and go from there, because you've got 10,000 there to start with. Half of this is 12,500. There's your budget gone.
So, any other thoughts? I'm happier to go with Councillor Calkin's recommendation. I think that historically, when I think about this, it hasn't generally been a half and half thing. So if it's a little bit over half, I would be comfortable with it. Councillor Moore.
My thoughts are, without any backup, is that most of these are annual events. A lot of them are annual events that reoccur each year, so they're getting prepared for their annual event, even though it might happen in the second round of our
For sure.
funding.
And
So without any data, I'd say there wouldn't is there less applicants in the second round
Generally,
historically?
there has been,
Yes.
yeah,
And saying that that's been across the past few years, I believe, as well.
yeah. Okay, let's get into it. So we've got that all up there. Just remind me how we're going to, oh, sorry, councillor
So
Gutton.
just in regards to this first one, and declaring a non-financial interest, but a conflict that I am a sponsor of this event separately.
Thank you for that. Your Highness.
Can you remember that, please? Look,
Your worship.
I don't personally see that as a conflict. I'd be conflicted in just about every event in the district
Okay,
by way of support or placing a sponsorship.
thank you for bringing it to our attention. Yeah.
My view.
If you want my view, I personally agree too. There's no pecuniary interest to you.
Okay.
You're not going to make any money out of it.
Yeah.
If you were, then that's a different configuration. But and particularly in a rural community, you're going to bump into that all the time. It's the reality.
So the first applicant here is the Huntaway Festival. I've just actually got, so do we want to just go around and discuss our reasoning for whatever money we put forward and make sure that what is in the column there as your recommendation is actually what you're wanting to put forward. Should we start with Dave? You've written your support there.
As submitted.
Jared,
So as submitted.
Jeff,
Yes, as I've written there, thank you.
as I've written there, myself, your worship.
Yeah, as written, just bear in mind that the Shamozzle hasn't requested every single year. There have been some years where they haven't requested money and they've stood on their entry fee.
Councillor Morn,
Same as what's there.
Leanne, and that's fine, just take her as written there in her absence. Councillor Carter, thank you for putting your making a contribution to this.
Yeah, it just reappeared on my laptop, so I looked into it for you.
Fabulous.
As written up there, setting events, that's actually out of our protocols for the event itself, for the funding. Seed funding for as a grant to enable events to develop. Well, this has been going for 25 years, as it says. It has got an astronomical amount of assets behind it, and it ended up with a profit last year. So I see no reason why we should continue funding. I could enter figures, but we're in public, so I won't.
I did take the liberty of inquiring about their retained earnings. Basically, they've talked about that as a committee, and it's really basically there for the day that they don't get the sponsorship that they require to run the event. So in the weekend, I've since heard of a significant capital outlay that would be very helpful in firming up the event going forward as well. So I believe there's good reason for those savings currently. Does anyone else want to comment or change any thinking? Are we happy to go with those figures?
Madam Chair, I just want to query Councillor Carter's comments, because I didn't see anything about seeding funding in the details online or in our data information. So did I miss it, or
I think you missed it because that's actually cut and paste.
Yes, that's an eligibility, it's one of the costs covered, we can.
But I mean, is that a basis for this funding is to be seeding money only? I didn't think it was.
It's just one of the costs that can be covered as.
Right. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to say that this is a very big budget event. I didn't realise how much money they needed to cover it. And our support, especially with this year and possibly cutbacks from what we're going to be giving them, is a token gesture almost. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. So, that being said, we've run through the chance. So we've got an average there of 2,750, and that'll be the amount recommended going forward. Moving on to the next one. Everyone okay? So we are the Rangitikei Business Awards, and yeah, I've nothing to add there. Leanne's made her recommendation. Councillor Karkin, anything? Would you like to add anything?
Yes, it was more of a question in this space. Was given how tight the budgets are in regards to funding, is there an opportunity? Because I think this is a fantastic initiative. So my question was, is there an operational budget to this if we're doing it in some kind of partnership with the event, or are they standing alone completely separately from us?
There is no events operational budget. That's the question.
Yeah, so is the event completely standalone? Thank you.
So, but would there be any budget out of the economic development budget that might be able to be contributed to this event? Was what I inferred the question probably was.
So who would answer that?
I'm just looking at
Stuck in the corner.
I don't think there is. I mean, we did cut all our budgets back this year in the community wellbeing and development space. I don't believe there is. I'm not sure if we're supporting it with venue hire. Potentially that's something that we could do, but yeah.
Some inclined stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
If I can just add on to Galen's comments, it's way too early in the financial year to identify any budget savings. The budgets, as we know, allocated were quite tight. Later on during the year, after Christmas maybe, we might be able to identify where there have been some savings, but in August, way too early to identify savings.
Maybe in the second round.
Yeah.
One question that I've just read in my notes that I was wondering is, if we do sponsor this, could we get naming rights around any of the event? It's probably something that I would like to inquire about going forward.
Certainly when we do support events, whether it's through funding or in kind, we always have our logo, and often we look, is there some, perhaps get some statistics that might be helpful for us. We always have that conversation about, how we can get something back in kind as well.
Awesome, yeah. Happy with that. Councillor Wong?
As I've written their application stated that they had sponsorship, but could we ask some more details of the sponsorship, because I would like to know who supports these. It's just to so if we do feedback to the applicant, could this do we do feedback to the applicant?
So we were able to see the other sponsors, weren't we?
I thought in this case they just said sponsorship.
I thought that I was, whether I saw it on Facebook or
X amount of dollars of current sponsorship.
yeah, if I recall correctly, I thought there was a list of who had already sponsored against certain prizes.
Right, I see, okay,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Councillor Vaughan.
Oh, well, yeah, it just appears that this is to fund their small shortfall of a couple of grand. So that's why I've dropped it down to 1,500, because it's just topping up their budget, really.
Thank you. And councillor Carter?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Awesome. Okay, so that brings us to an average of 1583.33, so we'll take that. Is that easiest to go to 1,600 or?
1590.
Okay. Fine, and next we go to Martin Country Music Festival. Another event that's been running in our region for a wee while now. So we'll just run through in the same manner, please, Your Worship.
Yeah, I take it as read, but I'll add to that you have a change of ownership for this year's coming event, and this will be the first time that the new owners have taken it over as an event for our district. It would be very disappointing, to say the least, if we had funded it in the past and there was a change of ownership and we didn't fund. It would send a very poor message, in my opinion.
Yeah. Councillor Carkin?
Yeah, as submitted, maybe just making a comment that in their budgets, they've allocated $1,500 worth of costs for permits. And just wondering if there's an opportunity for us to gain in an in-kind way and provide relief for that to boost the sponsorship.
Do you want to comment on that from staff or?
It's just my personal view.
Right. Councillor Wong?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Looking at everyone else's submission and based on the mayor's comment, I'd like to lift mine to 2,500, please. Councillor Moore?
Yeah, I've just question that they're asking for 7,000, but in their budget they've put $5,000 from the RDC event sponsorship scheme. So, and looking at the bottom line, looks reasonably healthy. And that's why I have, gone down to the 5,000. I think it's worthy cause. Yeah, I could probably actually go lower on those comments. I'll change mine to 4,000 based on that's what they put on their budget.
Leanne's is there. Councillor Wilson?
I'm comfortable to leave mine where it is. However, it's similar to the previous discussion, it is a well-established event and we need to consider some of these funds going forward. I'm just picking up on some of the comments about external support that council may be offered from Councillor Calkin and things. I think it's important to remember council already does that and is in contact with these groups and organisations very well through our parks and reserves. We always go out of our way to make all our parks and reserves look as good as we possibly can, but we do put a significant extra effort in around these events. There has been some good support from council in the past, and I'm sure that will continue in the future. And I just want to let you know that that does happen if you're wondering if it doesn't. So council does support these things very well.
Councillor Carter?
Are we happy to fund prize money? $9,885 prize money. Are we happy to do that? I don't think so.
However, there's also
that's included in the
$35,000 worth of hireage, etc., which I think would be what our contribution would be
What
going
this funding round's all about. It's supporting an event, not paying for prize money.
Yeah, so my comment is that there is 35,000 in hireage to make that event go ahead. So that is likely what we are subsidising, not the prize money. Yeah.
It's a total figure with funding, not individual items. I'm sorry for arguing or discussing this with you, but they've given the total figure of expenditure, income, and then what they want from us. Also looking at the fact of how much they've got in their profit from last year and also their capital values, which is high again, as like Hunterville.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Funding a well-supported and well-financed event within themselves. Hence my seeding events comment again.
Okay, Your Worship.
Yeah, there's a little bit of history you need to understand with this event. It was local and were local for many, many years. And they built up a financial pot. And when it changed in the first instance to somebody from out of town, they've cleaned out all of that money, base money that had been built up. And when they've done that, they've now passed it over to somebody else. So somebody's starting from a clean sweep. We do provide a lot of support around this event, as in most events. So we're doing all of the rubbish. We're putting extra cleaners on to service the toilets and things. There is a fair degree of effort, but I also think it's you've got to be careful with these sorts of things as to how much is first of all in, for instance, whether it's Joe's and Galen's job descriptions to provide services, or whether they are contractual arrangements we have with the trusts, which had been now in Tie Happy and Bulls rather than Martin. So you've just got to bear in mind that there's some overlap sometimes, yeah.
So having heard all that comment, is everyone happy with their nominated figures? Well, that leaves us with 2,630.
I wish to apologise for those comments, those figures. I was looking at the wrong budgeting. My system was
Very well said
I'm looking after it. My classmate here is
Onwards and upwards, Tuakina Caledonian Society, again a long-standing event that is hugely appreciated in our district. In the same manner, we'll go round as per that list there. Councillor Wong, got any comments or anything you'd like to add?
I see I hit the average figure. I did trim my figures because I knew the funding had been cut back, so I would like to support all these worthy causes to a greater extent, but as such, that's all. So, thank you.
Councillor Kalkin,
Submitted.
Your Worship.
Yeah, and this is a comparison to the schmozzle. Some years we weren't asked for money from the schmozzle. Every single year we've been asked for money for this. And what the application doesn't show you nowadays is the state of their balance sheet. Their balance sheet is actually fairly strong, very strong. And bear in mind that a whole lot of this cost of their event is also flying in international judges out of places like Scotland and so on.
Yes, so
Still saying we support, but just need to be aware.
I did make a note there that there's no balance sheet provided, and we actually asked for that now. So I'm, I guess, was disappointed not to receive that. Councillor Morn.
Yeah, I was a bit of a Grinch here. Looks like I got a balanced budget. And yeah, it's going against what I did with another one, but I feel if there's a balanced budget, there should be there's no, hang on, I've got to say that wrong because they probably put on our sponsorship of $1,500. Oh, no, 10,000 they put in. Okay. Can I have a bit of a think and then?
Yes, certainly. So nothing more to add there. Yeah, basically that there is no public building, so they do need to hire marquees at a cost of 13,500. Yeah, but a well-attended and family fun event in our district. So I'm happy with my recommendation there. Leanne's, she has actually put 6,000. So that is, yeah, that's,
She's not in the room.
she's not in the room. So Councillor Wilson,
Can I just,
sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
the 5,000 question that was raised earlier was, I believe that the recommendation within the process is that there is a maximum of 5K. Suggested maximum.
I don't know about that.
I know that is the case for the Kennedy Initiative, 2,000, I'm pretty sure. In terms of this, it's 50% of the cost. I'll need to confirm.
Okay. We can just keep, come back to that. Just right, we'll just go through and then you can get your thoughts together, Councillor Maughan. Councillor Wilson.
Look, happy to support, but I do feel is that the overall, the scheme will require a review because there is a number of questions being raised around the table, and I think for going through and moving this one forward today, I'm just happy to support. Going forward, we're going to have to review. This will be my undertaking.
Okay. Councillor Carter.
I did find a balance sheet for this event on the entry. It actually says it on here, on, that it's there on page, where are we, 78? It says there to reckon the profit loss. And
Well,
they
it's
aren't.
not a balance sheet, it's just the profit and loss.
It's the same, well, it shows you what they have got and what they haven't got.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I looked for it, but
On the entry form it did, I'm quite sure, but
maybe
they
missed it.
aren't lacking money. Is my comment. And that we, as I say, seeding events, 60 years of it, I'm quite sure they would have it themselves. We're not Father Christmas.
Councillor Maughan.
Yeah, I'm usually the Grinch, but I must have rubbed off on my mate next door. I feel I made a mistake on this one, so I would like to put in $2,000.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Kezia. So we've had it confirmed, there's no maximum amount, but it's 50% costs. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't believe we can change, particularly Leanne's in that situation. We'll have to run, we will be running with.
Can you just clarify that ruling? There's 50% of the cost.
Eligible costs.
I mean the eligible cost.
25,000.
There's a whole lot of,
Of the
Costs.
25,000.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
no, of the cost of the event, there's a whole lot of costs that we consider eligible. And we will only fund up to 50% of those. So I assume that it's less than the 6,000
Yeah, so
because of the 13.5 that we're paying for the marquees.
one of the expectations is that they come with other funding opportunities and they'll need to cover that 50% for some other means, and we can, those eligible costs can be covered up to 50% from council.
Okay. And that's vetted before we get to see. That-
No, it doesn't seem that way because we're going to get to an application, it will be automatically ineligible. because of that reason.
Oh, okay, all right.
So to councillor Carter's point before, this one actually has prize money in there. So that is not eligible, so that should actually have been removed. So it's the eligible costs that they get 50% of.
So we are recommending 2,750 as a committee.
Just a point,
Yes.
with the comment made, with the eligible cost, who makes that calculation before we see it? Or don't, is it not?
It hasn't been made currently. We are looking at those costs and making that decision. Maybe that will be looked at going forward. Sorry.
Can I also
Yes.
clarify too that we recently reviewed the events scheme for the funding. So the criteria for this one is still based on the last one because we'd already advertised this. So the new criteria will kick in from round 2 as well.
I think,
So with that, I'm assuming everything will be analysed before we get to see it ourselves.
Well, this is a decision, I guess, that you need to make. If you want me to do more vetting and summarising, then I can do that, or it can come to council and you can choose what is vetted and eligible.
With us not knowing what's eligible and what's not eligible, and they word it in different ways to get round that eligibility, if they're quick on the mark. Having it vetted prior to us seeing it for the next round would be a great help.
And I think in the past too, all the applications came as is because if we hadn't, at the end of the year, if we still had funding left over, quite often council would determine to perhaps fund at a higher level and cover some of those costs.
which was certainly done in the
Yes.
past. Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Maughan.
But in our notes, it says that all these applications we've looked at have passed the eligibility test.
No.
Yeah, and doesn't it say in our
Um,
meeting notes that
but
these
we
are
as a
all
committee have
eligible for
always-
sponsorship?
They've always had the discretion to override and make the decision as we see fit.
Yeah, but the ones we're looking at are being deemed to be eligible for the sponsorship for the grants that we're looking at.
It's my understanding.
Yeah.
I think, from my point of view, I think the eligibility is credible that things like prize money shouldn't be available to be given. But that process sounds like it's already been worked through and will kick in for next time.
Yeah.
But at the moment, for this round, you have the right to override that. That's what I'm hearing.
And that was one of the reasons we reviewed those guidelines so that it gave you more clear guidance on it.
On to the next one, please. Balls District Community Trust. In the same manner, we've got Leanne's there at 1,000. Councillor Calkin,
As submitted.
Councillor Wong,
As submitted.
your worship?
Yeah, I just wanted to check that we're not actually funding this twice. Because we have some KPIs in terms of the Bulls Trust to deliver. So we give the Bulls Trust sort of circa around 20 odd K a year. And as part, and they raise a whole lot of other money as well. So that's not their only funding. But with regard to the money that we give them, there's a whole lot of KPIs that they need to deliver. And I just wanted to have it checked that this isn't a KPI of delivering a Christmas parade that we're already funding with the agreement that we have with the trust to deliver. But I also think that Christmas parades, council needs to decide whether it's a core function of council. So, you know, we have parades in most of our towns at Christmas. They're getting far more challenging because of traffic control, especially with regard to State Highway. But just to have one ask for money, then where does that leave the others? Or whether you just accept that that's a social function of council and goes into our budgets and is excluded from this process.
That's not a big question. But it's not, the Christmas parade is not in the MOU.
So just to that, it's one event that they get and the Christmas parade's not on that.
It's not
It's not
on
a part of
the
the
MOU. That's all I want to just check that it was against that MOU. Right.
So just further to that, the Bulls Community Committee declined to run it, invited to run it and declined to run it. Do they normally run it? Who normally runs the Bulls Christmas event? Yeah, that's what came to my mind.
I think it's always.
From what I understand, it has been the trust since I've been here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, councillor Morn.
Yeah, it's listed. I just think businesses, maybe there didn't look like there was a lot of business support, you know, for funding for the parade. You know, I know one other community I'm involved with, the businesses around town get together and you know, throw in some funds to help run the parade.
So do we get a chance to directly feed back to these applicants, and could a comment like that go directly back to the comments? Yeah. So I guess councillors, if you've got any direct messages back, make that clear, and we can make sure that gets channeled through. Councillor Wilson.
Happy to support as listed, but would note, along with the mayor, there is more questions here that need to be possibly considered.
Okay. So that brings us to an average of 1,290. And we can move on. Martin Arts and Crafts Centre, in the same manner. Leanne's is there, councillor Kalkin,
No, that's submitted.
councillor Wong.
I just made the point that they've had two figures on their application. Just seem to be inconsistent, so. Apart from that, as written. I personally just took the request at the 2,110, but yeah, okay. Your Highness? Good.
Oh, no. Which one should we go with? So, look, and my view on this is I'm happy to support. However, I wonder if they're taking a shotgun approach to funding here. Because the Creative Communities funding, I would have thought, was tailor-made for this type of application, which is not funded by the ratepayer. So if we could have funded it out of Creative Communities, that's where I think we could have directed them to. But however, they've made the application as an event, and it is what it is.
Okay. Councillor Morn?
Again, I note that the event shows they're asking for money, even though their event shows a surplus, and they're asking for 2,100. That's why I've dropped it down. Oh no, I dropped it down to zero. I don't think they actually need our funding to run their event.
I put a question mark there. Was there $1,000 given in 2022 returned? Because they haven't held it since 2019.
Because of COVID.
Hmm. Yeah, we can just follow up on that. And I'm happy with my recommendation. Councillor Wilson
As submitted.
and Councillor Carter.
As submitted.
Thank you. So that brings an average of 974. Okay. 980 going forward. The Doors Open Martin event, which we have supported in the past. Interested in your thoughts around this. Leanne, beg your pardon, hasn't supported it. Councillor Carlton, have you got any comments?
Yes, just but previous precedent here, noting the personal bank account was the issue for me. So if we were able to do it via POs like we did last time, then I would support, and that figure would be 1,000.
So if we can ask staff, is it possible to, I believe in the past, council paid those bills directly? Happy with that process?
We'll follow the same process as last year,
Okay.
if you agree to it.
Then can I go to 1,000? Then thank you.
Councillor Wong.
I think my figure should have been 1,000 as well, from what I've written.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Your worship.
As such, but just the question around paying it out of another account, that's still council money. So for instance, I'm sure that the finance team do budgets on the amount of money that we receive in terms of occupancy of centres like Te Marapihi and all of those things. Just if you're looking at just funding it from other, it still comes out of a council fund to some extent. So if you push things over to parks and reserves or whatever, you're still bearing a cost to council.
Any comments?
I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing. We were just saying that last year they gave a personal bank account which the committee agreed not to accept. So we worked out a different payment arrangement. It wasn't that we went to parks and reserves. We worked out a purchase order.
Yeah, it's just the way of transferring the funds as opposed to where it gets recorded.
Yeah, not that we.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier around, we could just waive consents or something like that.
Not for this one, that wasn't.
Sorry.
Councillor Morn.
Yeah, as stated up there.
I was reading my comment there, support because of a new tree. Sorry, it's not very elaborate. What I was referring to there is the new Christmas tree. So that'll be opened on this night, and yeah, I would be excited to see council, behind that project as a result. Back to you, Councillor.
Yeah, I just want to add a caveat to my one is, again, I think the businesses should support it in some way. I see in their budget, the only income they've got is from our sponsorship scheme, the $2,000 that they put in.
So you'd like a comment to go back to the...
Yes.
So
I guess we're forcing them in a way because they want $2,000 to run it and they're only going to get $750, so they still have to find $1,200 one way or the other. So in a way, it's going to be a conduit to get them to get the funding somewhere else.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Probably just a comment or a contrary view to that, Councillor Morn, that the business community of Martin have fronted with a lot of funds recently, especially for that tree, which is where, a lot of this stuff is happening. So I commend the businesses of the main street of town and actually think that, potentially they have already contributed a significant amount of money to this. So to go back to them as a recommendation to ask businesses for more money, it's probably not what I'd like to see us do.
I guess,
So the question that's coming up on my mind, if we don't come up in this instance with the 2,000 question asked for, would this event effectively go ahead? It's
They're only relying on this. Well, just in their budget, they're only relying on this.
Any other?
They've got, they're not showing any other source of income.
going back to our rule, I thought they had to fund 50%. They're funding 50% from somewhere else. We need to clarify, obviously, through this board. Councillor Wilson.
So I guess this is probably one that we have had some discretion around. We've got two proven people that off their own back decided to basically have a promotional night in Martin. And this is the 5th year of doing it. It's been very successful in the past. But yeah, so there's a few things that they don't have a separate bank account, and they obviously rely on our support to make it happen. But that they have a proven history, basically. Yeah. I'll just finish going through these, and we can see where we land. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just on this one, your comments are right. This is well received and is a very successful event. It is going to come together with the opening of the community stage on the green space and the official lighting of the Christmas tree, which we're all aware of the significant amount of support that's come around those two projects. So this does dovetail into it very, very nicely. Seldom do I change my opinion on such things, but I will in this case, based on the fact that I've heard the issue is the bank account. And fundamentally, that issue does need to be addressed if we're going to review this. It's either a yes to a private bank account or it's a no. We can't keep jumping around this. I still have concerns on the private bank account thing. I think it sets a very, very strong precedent, and it's something that we shouldn't just push aside. So I do have some concerns on that.
But I think the answer to that is no, it doesn't go to a private bank account, so we're paying an invoice on doing it.
Yeah, I understand that, Kevin, how that works, but I think that matter needs to be relayed back to these people, that we just can't keep doing this. I think it does set a bit of a
We've got
precedent.
the opportunity to do that when we feed back to them and say next year we would expect to see not a private bank account on there.
To that, there are ways that they can do that within the community. There are community trusts that operate that could facilitate that, which would stop council having to do that. There are, I've mentioned it before, there is the Martin Rotary Community Trust account, which could facilitate exactly the same thing. There are ways that these organisations could come together and stop council having to muck around doing this. So, but on the grounds that I do want to support it, because I'm aware of the magnitude that it will have for those three events coming together. So I would support it to the tune of $1,000.
And Councillor Carter.
Unlike Councillor Wilson, I'm sticking to my guns. There's criteria set. Let's play with the rules as they are.
Okay. So anyone, second chance now to make a comment if required, or make any adjustments. Happy as we go. So that's 880, sorry, decided upon. Mangawika Heritage Incorporated. If my memory serves me correctly, I don't think we've had an application from them in recent years. So exciting to get that. Councillor Karkin.
Submitted.
Councillor Wong.
Well, this is a new event for Mangawika, and I would I'd like to see it supported. Thank you.
Your Worship?
As stated, they have run similar events in the past, but it's been many years, and I would like to support it.
Councillor Vaughan?
Yeah, as stated.
And I'm happy to support. Is there, sorry, I just see there. So Leanne is not supporting this, and then Councillor Wilson,
As stated.
Councillor Carter. So no further comments. That leaves us with 1,630. All Points Camping Club of New Zealand asking for 3,000. Councillor Carter, have you got any comments?
No, just as submitted there.
Councillor Wong,
Yes, submitted. Thank you.
Your Worship.
I'd lower it to 1,500, just because of where we're going to sit with money.
Councillor Maughan.
I've just lost my page off here, but yeah, for me, just a small recognition of $500.
Okay, and I also would like to lower my recommendation to 1,500. Leanne's put in 3,000. Councillor Wilson,
Yeah, happy to leave it as stated to support this new initiative.
Councillor Carter.
That should read 1,500, not 500, thank you.
Thank you. So that gives an average of 1,470. Ringatiki Sharing Sports, once again, an event that has been long running in our district. In fact, it's the 60th year, I believe. And they use the Memorial Hall, and I would, looking through the costs, I would suggest that this money that is come from us would go more towards the transporting of the sheep and stage costs. So Councillor Wong, have you got any comments?
No, this is a very well filled out application and as written. Thank you.
Councillor Kakan.
Yeah, and I've touched on this a couple of times. One of the things that they've noted in their expenses was floor repairs. I wondered if that money was just going to go full circle, go to them and then things like that. So my question was, no, I'll leave it. Sorry, just stick with the 2.5. Thank you.
That was in the report, after-match report of last year's events, and I think they're going for insurance. But I guess we cover that later on, those reports of past events.
I don't know if they would do it, or do they come up in the white paper? Yeah.
Sorry, I can confirm
Yeah.
Councillor Vaughan's comments. They're looking for insurance to cover the damage to the floor.
I see that little dog people were very good at putting nets down, so. Councillor Wong, you supported?
Because I had a bug on my computer, so something I submitted twice.
Okay.
Don't-
Can we,
don't-
take out
don't-
this one, please? Your worship,
This absolutely highlights, if you don't leave money in the second round, what happens to Tai Happy. So they're sharing sports comparable, they're on the same sort of circuit. They face similar costs. If anything, they face greater challenges in terms of bringing stock to the event. And they face more difficulties actually being able to unload and use the facilities that are there. So I've highlighted it. If you clean it all out, what happens to people in September?
thank you.
They run at very similar times as well.
Councillor Morn,
No, same. Yeah, it is.
my comments is there. Leanne has supported it to 5,500. Dave, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
As support.
Councillor Carter.
As my rant earlier about funding an event that's been going for 60 years, should they look after themselves?
Okay, so that, Councillor Wong?
Can I just ask His Worship if, or anybody, if Tai Happy Sharing Event has applied for funding before this?
Yes, they have, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that brings us to an average of 2,500.
Neither of these events charge an admission for people to watch. So big
Is it
numbers
the
of
last,
people.
is it the
tune
last one? Yep.
Would you mind giving me like 2 minutes to cut
Oh, no, sure, yeah. It's tricky also, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with Leanne not being here and some of her recommendations are significantly higher and the limited budget, yeah, you know, so if you're not here to vouch your case, is that okay or not? I mean, that, I'm just putting that out there.
Last time His Worship wasn't able to be here and we accepted it, which is why we didn't make a big one.
Right.
So you're gonna have to make that ruling at some point yourselves.
Councillor Calkin.
I almost wonder, like, even though we've gone through that, if we feel comfortable with the total amount this round and what that leaves for round two, then great, we can move on. But if there's any that we're not comfortable with, or if the amount that we want to leave for round two, we want to leave less or more, then we could make a recommendation as a committee, I feel, to make some changes.
Thank you for that comment, yeah. Councillor Wong.
Just going on a bit further about the absent contributors. If they're only one voice amongst a dozen or whatever it is, eight other applicants, and if any of us feel that their weighting has changed our recommendation significantly, we have got the choice to alter our own figure to perhaps compensate for that to a certain extent. So I believe that even though they're not here, we still get to balance their points. So if I thought Leanne's was too high, I could lower mine. That's why I don't think that's such an issue as perhaps as it could be.
Certainly the mathematician's view. Councillor Wilson.
Just perhaps another a question to note when we consider how this unfolds, about the ability for people to be in the room for this is another question. There are a couple of questions that have come out of today's meeting, and that could be another one. I would not want to see us going back through the list that we've just done. It is what it is.
Yes, certainly.
Just a question for them, really.
Are the applicants aware that there's a significant reduction in funding?
Yes, it's
So they're all aware. So has any assessment been made on who normally applies in the second round? Because I do think unless the people are onto it and know that they're going to be out,
I suppose it's
Andrew's view, that's quite tricky to.
it's incredibly difficult because we have had COVID for the last 2 years and we haven't had the amount come through that we
There
normally
has
would
been a
have.
huge
Yeah.
increase in applications.
So it'd be very difficult. You'd have to almost go back 3 or 4 years and some of these aren't even.
Yeah. But fair to say that most of the events that we've gone over today come after the second round. So these are events that happen through the summer. The second round is when.
Second round will be February, March?
February.
Oh, no, so yeah, so they will have happened before. Yeah, they will have happened before.
Should have.
So you're gonna have, the winter months, you're not gonna have so many applications. But you can't fund it.
For the second round last.
So Thai people would miss out because they
Oh,
have
two
applied.
applicants.
And one of them pulled out, so sorry, last year we had 3 in the second round and one of them pulled out, so.
Right.
Oh,
Who were they? They were South Mac Friends of the
Yeah.
School and Gumboots Brass and Wind Ensemble. Now, we have an amount of 6,550 is the balance left for the second round. Any discussion on that? Okay, we'll take that as accepted and thank you for that. And we will go on to the next one, which is our Community Initiative Fund. I believe, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Make the recommendation, sorry. So I would like to move that we, the event sponsorship scheme consideration of applications for round 1 of the 23-24 be received. Have a seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. And we go through and have to put those numbers by that.
Yeah, we've taken note of them, so we will do that. We've got the total down the bottom of the balance. So just in the interest of time, if we do the community initiatives, then we'll take a quick break and tidy them both up.
Okay.
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thank you, Councillor Carter. Seconded. Online, we are looking at page 16, item 9.2, the Community Initiatives Fund. We've got 30,000 in this fund and round 2 will be in March of this year, next year. So in the same manner, I just can't quite see. Everyone happy? We just go through in the same process. Councillor Wong, we've got, this is the application from the Taihape Neighbourhood Support. Have you got any comments?
Just the comment of, to see additional funding would be nice. I think that's a common theme for quite a few of these applications for the last scheme. So if we do feedback, that would be to be noted, please.
Did you get that?
Additional funding.
Yeah.
Otherwise, as is.
Councillor Wilson,
Support.
Your Worship.
My typing at speed should be, is this commercial rather than this is commercial? In other words, you're paying somebody to do some artwork for $4 grand, isn't it? So I quite like the concept, but is this a source of income for an artist?
are you happy with your recommendation? Councillor Calkin?
Oh, sorry, just the notes there, you'll see I went back in and amended, so the other notes fell off, but yeah, happy to support.
Councillor Maughan?
Yeah, I don't support it because there's no other funding out, and I don't think it's that beneficial to the community. It could be completed by volunteers and effort in the wider community, so no, I don't support this one at all.
And in light of previous comments, etc., I would like to drop my recommendation to 1,500, please. Councillor Carter, you have $25 in there.
Yes, no, I'll stick to that. Haven't been convinced with the discussion, so.
Okay. No further comments. We will go with 1,220. And move on to Sports Whanganui. They're requesting for the duathlon series, 4,395. My question there was, we have a contract with Sports Whanganui to do stuff, I guess, in our district. Does this not form part of that contract, or, yeah, does he comment along?
So we don't have a contract with them. We work in partnership with them, as does Whanganui District Council and Ruapehu.
Oh, yes.
And then they fund like the sporting positions that have been
Libby through Healthy Active Learning.
Yes.
They also come down and help Diane, who's down at the local sports centre here. They just actually come through our community and support what's going on with the local schools as well, and create space where they can. But we actually, in partnership with us, they don't have a contract with us to deliver it in our area. That
partnership, we contribute some funding to.
No.
Okay.
It's a relationship at the moment.
Thank you.
It's a stakeholder relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
The funding we contribute to is the regional sports facility that's within the whole Horizons area.
Okay.
And Sport Manawatū led that.
Understand. Thank you very much. Oh, Your Worship.
We don't have a contract with them, is absolutely correct. However, they get national money on the basis that they also cover Ruapehu and Rangateke. So they get funding, I believe, that is national funding, that they say we will provide services for Ruapehu and Rangateke.
So how do we, is it an option to, I'm obviously keen to support this, but, you know, I'm not keen to be advocating for double dipping.
I don't see it as double dipping.
Right.
I don't see it as double dipping at all.
Okay.
But that's, you know, it's not as if Sport Whanganui are just funded by Whanganui to provide this service to us.
Right, so you're comfortable that that's come to this space?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Wong?
As written, thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, Mayor Andy's 100% correct with that. I would also like to say that there has in the past been a little bit of a disconnect between Sport Whanganui and the Rangateke district. However, we do have a person there working within that space who lives locally now, and the activity within the area and the district has significantly improved in that space. So I'm very happy to support.
Fabulous. Your Worship.
I think it's a really cool idea, but it also is backed onto the enormous community effort that's been put into these reserves and so on. So more than happy to support.
Councillor Carfin?
Yeah, very happy to support.
Councillor Moore.
I'm seriously considering dropping my amount, but it's not that generous anyway. I'm just looking at the thing. They're asking for the funds, all the funds to sponsor two things, which is a website and some medals. And I think the initiative to have these kids running around the dam is awesome. But I don't think it's good spend money on medals, and give them a chocolate bar or something, or a website. So my $1,000 is only as recognition that it's getting out young people out and about around an amazing facility that we've got up at the dam, and a sort of a promotional thing. It's the only reason I'm supporting it, or else I wouldn't be.
Would you like to comment?
Yes, can I just speak to the website? I think it's more a registration site, so it's a place where kids can come and register and enter the different grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, I'm sticking with my $1,000.
Yeah, I was also concerned about $2,000 being spent on medals. I was, a chocolate fish maybe does sound like a good option, but let them sort that out. But I'm happy with $2,000. Councillor Carter.
In agreement with it, an $8 medal means a lot to a kid that has completed an event such as a triathlon. So I'll support the medals, but not so much the website. An $8 medal, 250 competitors, I think it is, they're looking at. No, big thumbs up.
So you're happy with your 2.5?
Thank you.
So that takes us to 2,360. Bring the Ringatiki District Council in the Poppy Places project. Again, what crossed my mind is there any operational budget which might cover, street naming or maintaining street signs or anything there that this might come out of?
Not in my area. Arno's shaking his head.
Right.
Not to shakes, I'm afraid.
Okie doke. So we'll see what comes out of this. Councillor Wong.
As written, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this, noting that this is a project that has already come to council. It was declined at council through that process, as council at the time felt that it was in the wrong space, and it was a request for direct funding of council, and an active decision was made to move it into this space. So that's why I'm supporting it.
Your Worship?
I'd reduced mine to 3,000, but I think my deputy engineer is absolutely right. We directed them to this.
Yeah. Councillor Kalkin.
Just happy to support.
Councillor Moore.
Going to be the Grinch again. I understand we directed them to this fund, but I think there's plenty of recognition of our returned service people through our Anzac parades and other things, and to spend $6,000 on road signs doesn't tick my box as a community initiative, so I'm sticking with my zero.
Okay. I am happy to support. Obviously, they won't be able to do as many in the next year unless they get an alternative source of funding. But happy to support the level of 2,000. Councillor Carter.
As stated, I feel this is more of an RSA line to go down rather than putting it on us, and then to end up we've actually made the application rather than them. So as I stated, had they made the application, I might have reconsidered.
Sorry, Madam
Chair,
Yes.
Casey's just pointed out that the wrong recommendation for Jeff
I-
was put up there.
It's, yeah, but I stand by my amount, so
So
just leave the 3,000, that's fine. You can delete the rest of the comment.
the amount.
Oh, that has to be changed back to 6, I think. Sorry, what was your amount, councillor Wong?
3,000.
Oh,
It's got the amount's right, but
yeah,
comment,
thank you.
computer on my part probably.
So the average comes out at 1,930. Thank you. This is an application from the Rotary Club of Martin for their Village Green stage.
Madam Chair, could I just declare that I am the community project lead on this project? You'll note that I have not submitted. However, if the committee and yourself wanted, I would answer any questions if required. However, I would not be commenting on this one. Whilst I have no pecuniary gain, I am the project lead on it.
Thank you, councillor.
Note that I am also conflicted.
Thank you,
And
Your
haven't
Worship.
submitted.
So councillor Wong.
I support this quite strongly. I don't know why I'm so generous, but
You're a nice person.
I probably a computer problem, but I'll read that stand. Thank you.
Councillor Carkin.
Yes, I did have a question here, and I apologise. I went looking for the details of the support we have provided this project in the past before trying to make my recommendation, and I couldn't find anything. So if I could just have that answered.
In the past, Rotary did bring to council an application to have the internal cost of the consent fees waived. That was agreed to by council, and that was to the tune of about $890 odd. That's the financial contribution for internal costs of consenting to the stage. So the stage itself is consented, and we're working through the completion of building the stage right now.
Could I make the recommendation of 3,200?
Councillor Morn.
Again, I see the benefit in the project, and all that, but I believe that the Rotary and Lions have the ability to raise the extra funds themselves through their resources, whether that's voluntarily or one way or the other. So that's why I'll put 0. I think we've already helped establishment of this through the building consent process, but I believe from memory that we're going to pay all the power, or the power will be going through the council. And I don't know if there's any way to reclaim that back off the users, but we will be having ongoing costs with this already through our whole council process, so that's why I put 0.
Councillor Wilson, can you comment on that?
Only if I may, I do have a conflict, so I'll be careful here. The project is significantly more than what has been requested in the application. Lions and Rotary have already contributed large sums of money, as have businesses and other communities who have people who have contributed in kind. Council agreed to apply for an ICP address to the site, and council has also agreed that the power that is used at the site would be paid on the council power bill. This is for the connection to create that power. There's two quite different, distinct things here. For a facility that is going to light the Christmas tree is also included in this as well, because that is why the power is needed. So I'm just pointing out that those are the cost contributions so far.
I feel that the Village Green is precious in terms of our main street of Martin, and I want it to be enjoyed and valued getting it to its best, basically, and I would like to increase my recommendation to 3,000. Leanne has recommended $4,000 and Brian Carter, Councillor Carter.
The criteria set in our funding. This isn't meeting our criteria. So that's why I've gone negative to 0.
Okay, once again, we do as a committee have the discretion to, a guideline that was given. Yeah.
Because it's a recreational function, it is excluded from capital projects, capital bills. There's a recreational function to it.
Say it again, please.
It's a recreation function, so it's excluded.
It's excluded. Oh, well, then I went with the Grinch then. If that's the case, because that's what I was working my funding on, I'd go for 2,000.
Thank you. That takes the average to 2,700. Thank you very much for your endeavours in this project, Councillor Wilson. I wish you well with it going forward. Looking forward to November. Yeah, so on to the all schools reunion. Watching the time, please. So we've got 3 more. So we're happy to continue getting through it. Thank you. So a new initiative. Councillor Wong, what are your thoughts?
I just have to state maybe a conflict of interest. The person applicant is my sister-in-law, and I would be attending this community event. But I would like to note that it's a personal bank account again, which is against our recommendations. And I didn't see I thought it was a pretty vague application because of the expenses were. But I still recommend that amount if I'm allowed to be a participant in this.
Yes, I'm happy for you to make a recommendation.
Thank you.
Your Worship?
Yeah, Taz is in a difficult position. And I think this may be one way of giving some support to the wider school community. So these are people that have been associated with the school for a long time, because they're 50 plus, I think. So they need all the support around them. So if they can have this event, I think it will help with where the school's at. So that's hence my high figure.
Councillor Calkin?
Yeah, the personal bank account piece came up for me as well, even though we can work around that. But the biggest one for me is, and as Worship touched on, he said the word if this event goes ahead. I think it's in conceptual stage at the moment. Not a lot of detail, not a lot of firm information there, and I just fear that, or had concerns that maybe we're a little bit too early in this application to be able to fully understand the way we can support it.
Okay.
Can I just ask what date is it meant to run?
Waitangi weekend, I believe.
Second week, February 24.
Right, okay.
But this is your chance.
Yes, it is. Councillor Morn?
Yeah, I have the same concerns as Councillor Calkin, and I'm only really putting a figure in because we have supported school reunions in the past, probably most recently Makirikiri School. So just on precedence, I've put in the $2,000. Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Thank you. And Leanne has put an amount in there, and Councillor Wilson?
I'm happy to support it. I was very much aware that it was a private bank account, but I was also aware that there is ways that the council staff can work around that, and particularly with an event like this, by supporting it through a purchase order system, there will be a number of purchase orders that would be able to be directly generated to supply some of these things that are needed. So I was reasonably comfortable supporting on that.
Thank you. I was also happy to support, especially in Louis, the town hall is unavailable currently. I just, the staff just moving through something.
No, we're just. It was just a question about when they would get this money, given some of the commentary about whether the event is in its infancy. The event's planned for the 9th of February next year, but literally when the council has made these resolutions, unless there's a reason not to, they actually do get paid out pretty quickly over the next few weeks. Yeah. But this one, if we need to, if you need Kim to go back to them to clarify anything, we can do that prior.
Councillor Moore?
Given they have got a private bank account, we'd probably do it through purchase orders. That money stay within council funds till those purchase orders come through.
Absolutely.
I've got no problem
So
if that's the case.
Yeah, everyone's happy?
Did I have one on there? You still got friend of mine I was on?
B0.
Can we scroll up?
Oh, it's got 10 years.
Yes, I have. That must be my second run. Yeah, no, stick with that, thank you.
What? Oh, yes, okay.
Double up, so.
Beg your pardon.
Leaving that, so-
Thank you, that's lucky. So the average there comes out at 2,594. So, okay. So we'll recommend 2,600. Next, we've got an application from the Epilepsy Association of New Zealand for $600. Councillor Wong, have you got any comments?
I just hope that,
Your amount seems interesting there.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? I blame Councillor Corker. I guess it balances those Grinches that occupy our space. I think it's a worthy cause. Those affected, where probably not most of us unaffected. Reading their comments, I think the people that benefit from it did benefit quite greatly, so I'll leave my amount there. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, happy to support. Sadly, these are the sorts of things that slip under our health system at a national radar level. And sometimes these are the things that get cut the quickest with little thought. So I think we should be supporting these types of community things.
Your worship?
Look, I would put $500.
Councillor Kalkin?
Yeah, I'll take Councillor Wilson's comments on board. While I didn't see much demonstration for our district, I'm sure that it does exist in our district, and would like to see some kind of funding go that way. So, yeah, happy to support with the request of 600.
We'll come back to Councillor Wong. Councillor Vaughan.
Again, yeah, I don't see any, there will be some direct benefit to our community, but not, highly visible. But again, I guess it is a little bit of a token gesture to say, help these people, support people in need. So I'll stick to my 600.
Thank you. I support.
Sorry, Madam
Yes.
Chair, can I just point out that once every month or two, and we meet in Taihape around who is servicing the rangatake in terms of these, and there's a whole lot of them. There's the Brain Injury Trust, there's even IRT attends and so on. But there's all sorts of things, and epilepsy have actually turned up in our district. Occasionally, I have literally people on the ground, so they are engaged here.
That's good to know. Leanne hasn't recommended, councillor Carter.
Full support. I'd love to know how they work it out. Their cost of over 80,000 that they're asking us for just 600. Seeing how many people they feel are affected by epilepsy, and for the education that they do into businesses and everything else, full support.
Okay. Councillor Wong, are you happy with your recommendation?
If I bring it down to $1,200, they'll get their $600. I'm gaming the system now.
Oh, your maths is out.
Someone's put
Should we just recommend 600?
Is everyone happy if we just recommend $600 to save?
You have to ask His Worship who's the standout.
I'm not the mathematician here.
Eh,
I'm happy for it to be rounded up if that's what it takes.
$600, yeah, thank you very much. Last but not least, the Bills Toy Library Incorporated, once again, a long-standing and very effective organisation in our community that's valued by many. Councillor Wong.
I support this wholeheartedly. There were no toys when I was at kindergarten, so I've missed out. So I feel the next generation should. I'd like to see that Bulls is growing, especially with the Ohakea developments, and there'll be a lot of young families. So this is it's a great thing to support.
Fabulous. Councillor Wilson.
Nothing further to add. I do support this.
Your Worship.
Yeah, I'm actually a member, but have never used it. It's just another donation.
Thank you. Councillor Cargan.
Happy to support, thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Yeah, happy to support. I'm just questioning my amount, given that, we are looking at budget rounds and a lot of the ones that we have granted money to have been well below their requested fees. And I'll drop mine to $2,000.
Thank you. I'm happy to keep it at 2.5. Leanne's at 2.5, and Councillor Carter.
Very happy to support, and I'm quite sure there's an abacus at the toy library that I can bring for you, if you like, Jeff.
Thank you.
So are you happy with your amount at 3?
Thank you.
Everyone happy? Okay, so the average there comes out at 2320. And that is the end of that round. Okay. So I'd like to make the recommendation that the report, the Community Initiatives Fund, consideration of applications for round 1, 23-24 be received. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Moore. The balance remaining in that fund is 16,270. So I hope, is everyone happy that that's the amount going forward? It's a great outcome. So we will,
Just tidy those.
yeah, Kezia will carry those averages as we've put up there. The total amount in this round, interestingly, was 13,720. So we will have more in the second round. And I think we now can, when we stop for, no,
If
what
you
time
want
is
to
it?
break now, instead of starting an item and break at 10:30, we could just break at 10:30 anyway, so take 10 minutes now.
Or we might be able to, look at the project forms. Yes.
Yeah.
Is everyone happy if we just keep going to,
Can you just put that recommendation through?
right,
Have you got a mover and a second?
no.
Recommendation 2 on the screen.
So can I please have a mover and a seconder for recommendation 2?
Move.
Second.
Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Carter. Thank you very much. Recommendation, so we're moving through to reports for information. This relates to the events that we have supported, and the recipients are asked to give us a report form. And I will move that the event sponsorship scheme project report form is received. A seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. And beg your pardon?
Just put it so it can be carried.
Oh, sorry, can I, all those in favour? Carried.
Can we have some questions on those?
Discussion, please.
Just briefly.
Yeah,
I know, Carol, these are on the report forms.
yeah, sorry,
I know,
I just see that on the order paper, it says 4 forms, it's actually 5. Is it 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. I know Carol doesn't like us picking up on spelling mistakes, but on those forms, because they're public documents, I notice in the CIF report, the spelling was, did you get less numbers than expected? It's got lees. So I know these are public documents, so LEES.
We're just at 10.1 currently, but that's.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were doing those reports for adoption.
Yeah, it's just 10.1, the event ones. We're getting to 10.2. That way, your.
So you got all these reports of the Bulls
Yeah.
and District, completed project reports for the event sponsorship scheme.
Oh, yes,
Right.
yeah.
The first events is the first one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So on that one, the event sponsorship scheme form has got asked where the visitors from rather than from. So that's what I'm just, I know it's pedantic, but, and I wouldn't bring it up in a council meeting with spelling mistakes, but this is out on our public arena. And just on the same vein, in the CIF reports, it's got that lees rather than less than you expected. So it's just a heads up, really. Have a look at. Sorry, Carol?
Any further comments or discussion around those report forms received? Thank you.
And I've got one more. Some of them did not have RDC in their contributions as far as their budget, their profit and loss accounts went. And I can cover that off separate. I just think if we're getting these reports, it's part of the criteria.
So,
So just to clarify for me, so they're not in the income?
Right. But I have a list of which ones those are. Sorry to be pedantic. But I proved that I read them.
so really we need that to be fed back to those individuals.
They need to include us where they've got funding from us, they need to be included on their project form budgets.
So
I can
pass on
sure
that would be
fine.
great. Yeah. Anything else? No. I'd like to recommend that the event sponsorship scheme, report, we've done that. Moving right along then to the Community Initiatives Fund project report forms. Any discussion here? And then I'll move that the Community Initiatives Fund project report forms be received. Seconded, councillor Carter. All those in favour? Carried. Is any
Sorry, who was the mover and seconder?
I moved that. Seconded, councillor Carter. So I think that earns us a cup of tea. Welcome back to anyone online. We're working off page 19, 10.3, financial snapshot for June 2023, the end of the financial year. Mr. Jones, would you like to talk to this, please?
Thank you very much. There are 4 aspects of this I'd like to just spend a bit of time going through and pointing out, if that's okay. So on page 19, section 2.2 of the report, just to re-emphasise what the chair just said, these are June figures. They are being finalised and they will be audited in the next few weeks. So I don't expect too many changes to what's presented today. So what's going to end up in the annual report, but there may be changes. If anywhere, it'll be around building valuations and depreciation, but just to point out that they are being audited. The main change between what we're showing at June as what was presented last month is actually on page 27, the Roding Group side. See if we could just refer to that page. And this is where the big numbers are. There shouldn't be any surprises here. We spoke previously about the subsidies and grants, the top line of revenue being under budget, and that was, as noted in the minutes and discussed last month, the Martin Rail Hub had a $4 million budget in June, and we all knew that wasn't going to arrive. So that's what's driven that large adverse budget variance. And in the expenses, the other expenses, the large $4 million overspend, I think we're all aware that's to do with the emergency works that was undertaken during the financial year. Importantly, the emergency works, they do attract revenue. So even though the OPEX is over budget, there will be revenue associated with that, which we'll receive that was also unbudgeted. Yeah.
Question through you, Chair, if I may, on that. So on that emergency works, that is our share of the direct funding, or is that still got a subsidy to come back?
Right, so what's showing in the 11.1 mil worth of expenses is our outlays to date. What we will receive, we have received and have accrued income relating to that expenditure at either 63, 83 or 100%, depending on.
So in real terms, it's a cost overrun.
There will be a net cash outlay on that, but it will be marginally offset by the fact we've done that work. We didn't do the low cost, low risk program, so we didn't spend that money, and therefore the grants associated with that we didn't get either. So there's a few moving parts to whether cash wise where we are. The amount we spent on emergency works was more than we didn't spend on low cost, low risk.
Can I further ask a question to that? And I see, Anna, you put your hand up there. So at what stage do we get a slightly truer figure of these numbers from a washout? And I'm noting that we're looking at our roading procurement and several other things in another area of council. Just wondering at what stage this could cross over.
That would be a report best provided by Arno and Assets and Infrastructure, because with my reporting, it's financial year based, and this is what we're talking about here is going to straddle at least one financial year, so it's best in that format.
Okay, thanks for that.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, Councillor Toon. Councillor Toon. No,
Your Highness.
Your Highness.
Can only be one, Your Highness. Her Highness. Yeah, I got a bit of a shock when I looked at the whole of council report when we saw last month looked like we had a surplus of 183,000. Now we've got a deficit of 8.3 million, and you explained that through the roading and there's a few other bits and pieces like water and whatnot, and a few gains. So when probably along Councillor Wilson's line, we get subsidy back to cover some of that emergency works.
Yeah.
So when does that go into the accounts?
It's reflected normally in the month after we put our submission into Waka Kotahi.
So does it come back and accompanying terms back into this financial year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not going to be 8-point-something million.
Just refer me to the page you're referring to.
The whole of council one. Just this.
But the point's right. In the financial year, that'll be back into the year that the work was undertaken, and the subsidy goes back into that.
Yeah.
It's just that you're on the June date as well, so those might not come in until you tidy up the accounts.
So, yeah, it won't be as bad as 8.3 million on our whole of council accounts.
The variances, well, they probably will, because I say there's 4 million worth of Martin Rail Hub income that we budgeted for, we're not going to get. We've known that all year.
Yeah.
And there's an extra 4 mil worth of OPEX associated with the emergency works that we had no control over. Okay, so some of that will be funded, which will offset that. But yes, compared to our budget position, the position we present will be adverse. And as we previously said, depreciation we know is going to be over budget.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I guess, oh, sorry, Madam
No,
Chair.
certainly, yeah.
I guess my comment is, June, the last time we looked at this, we had up in May, was 183,000 and, quite good. And then within 1 month, we've really blown out. And I just wonder if there's a better way we can, through the year, get a handle on where we may be at the end of the year.
So what we noticed in this financial year was there was a much bigger chunky things in there. The main example, the best example to refer to is the Martin Rail Hub $4 million grant income that was budgeted. Now, we've been saying all through the year, we're not going to get it this year. So we phased that to be as a June budget.
Yeah.
So up until May, we weren't distorting the year-to-date figures.
Yeah.
But obviously then when June hits, you've got that 4 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we'll do next year is when we become more aware of these things, we'll make them more visible in the narrative.
Yeah.
Like as you saw in the minutes for this meeting, the last meeting, we discussed this last month, so everyone was aware of it, but I'll make it more clear because these big project related things, and we don't have certainty over the timing of their receipt or payment in many times. So we'll make them more visible in the cover report.
Thank you.
Yeah, something you'd like to add?
No.
No?
The only issue is I think what's being explained is if you're trying to do the yearly account, these big ones will create a big block, and it goes through. So you put it to the end of the year where that tidies up for the end of your financial year. That's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
So-
but it's not.
No, so
Government-
if you want
the governor's looking at where the finances are going through, even though we are in the notes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but the risk of that is that the whole year they will be out. If something like that happens and you don't pick up.
Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Just to go to sort of page 19 and 4 capital expenditure. Just trying to get my head around things like borrowings are usually linked to capex. Is that right?
Borrowings are normally linked to growth capex.
Right. Yeah. Okay. In the last 18 months, we've sort of increased our borrowings by 26 million, and yet our capital expenditure is below what's been budgeted. I just see there's a disconnect between what we're borrowing and what we're actually spending on capex type projects.
Okay, if you'd like, I'll take it offline and I can provide a reconciliation that compares capex and debt movements.
Happy with that? Councillor?
Thank you. Yep.
Councillor Calvin.
Thank you. Just further to the shortfall in funding that we receive or didn't receive, but we're budgeting on for the Martin Rail Hub, being $4 million. I know we've borrowed basically $12 million within 90 days. My question is, how much of that borrowing was anticipated compared to unexpected because as a result of that funding shortfall? And then, what I guess my nervousness is then around the finance cost of that debt.
Okay, so just backtrack if you can, then please, Councillor. What was the nature of the first question? There seems to be a two-part question.
So just in regards to the funding that we didn't receive this year, the $4 million that was budgeted for. And I'm just trying to put this in a way that I can understand that's sort of common sense. But if we didn't receive $4 million that we were budgeting on, and we've borrowed.
Yeah, if I may, we didn't receive it because we didn't spend it, so it's cash neutral.
Right, okay.
The 4 million would have been reimbursing costs that we didn't actually end up paying. So there was a capex line and a offsetting receivable line. They both were zero from effectively. So the rail hub had zero impact on that.
So there was a series, my understanding, there's a series of things that we're going to do, we haven't done them. So we budgeted in to get that income in and expend it. So that should be a zero on both sides.
Your Worship, did you want to comment?
Just first of all, on the first part of your question, our expected financial position and that the LTP was sitting at this stage at 55 million in terms of borrowing, whereas our current position is around 31 million. So in terms of the LTP projections, we're way under where we thought we'd be, and that's obviously because capital projects have not happened. But with the rail hub money, it is probably good to do an analysis down the track of following that through. Because one of the things with the rail hub money is, yes, we have spent some money that we haven't yet been able to claim for because of the KPIs around the time. So, because we're in the Environment Court for quite some time, so the Environment Court costs, sit ultimately against a $9.1 million budget. But the timing delay means that we're just behind in terms of time frame as to when we get the next series of payments. But however, the Kānoa have been told by budget, by Minister Robertson, that Kānoa will be able to renegotiate timeframes, etc. So we don't have to go back to Minister Robertson to explain. So the 9.1 is still protected.
Councillor Moore?
Just a point of clarification on the 4 million from the rail hub that we haven't got, but we haven't spent it on the other side. Is that what I'm hearing? So it should be. So why is the 4 million being touted as the reason that we're 8.7 million out of kilter when we haven't spent it on the other side?
So as His Worship said, we get the money back when we complete certain milestones. So you pay the money up front, tick a milestone, get reimbursed. We haven't ticked sufficient milestones during the year to get that 4 million paid to us. So we would have paid some money. It'll be on the capex report.
That was my error.
But I thought I heard that there was 4 million not spent.
That's right.
Yeah, there's if we go through the page.
That's my error.
Oh, sorry.
Because I didn't realise that there's been so much spent on it, so.
So page 30 shows that there's 2 million worth of the June financial year's capex budget not spent. So we did spend some, but we won't get that back till we tick the next milestone. First line in roading and footpaths on page 30.
Can I just, please correct me if I'm wrong, but also within the 9.1 million, you also actually have an increased valuation of our assets because we actually end with having a share of something. So we actually haven't added it in terms of that process to our asset base. See that, but because only limited capital expenditure.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, and just through to Councillor Moore, this is a similar thing that we see quite regularly with roading, because we spend the money up front and we're lodging a claim to Waka Kotahi, particularly around emergency works, but also throughout the year on works as we go forward. We have to pay out to contractors and we pay up front and then claim back. So it's like your milestones and things like that. We've got to reach these KPIs and these targets within our roading and things to go forward. Emergency works is a bit of a sticky one because we've got to get in and get the road open, and then we have to go and ask, and we're not sure whether or not that emergency works funding is going to be at what percentage. So it can be quite a delay before the pot suddenly spikes and then comes back down around with a degree of money. That's what I think we're seeing and we're talking about.
And with the extent of all these matters we've had in the last 12 months, it means that we used to be able to survive on a bank account of 3 mil. That's not practical anymore because our monthly accounts payable payments can vary between 3 and over 6. So we need that buffer in there to give us that extra security. If I may, I managed to get through 2 of my 4 points. Thank you very much. So may I continue to point number 3? Thank you. Page 22, I'd just like to refer you to that. And this is, we added this narrative about rates remissions, a bit of a reconciliation and summary at the bottom of page 2. This was brought up at last month's Finance and Performance Committee. And it's interesting to note that the huge majority of our, what we refer to as rates remissions are actually penalty remissions. And that's a good thing because it shows that people are on payment plans. And that's what we're greatly encouraging that. So the bottom line of that little reconciliation shows that only 29k is actually discretionary or reactive rate remissions as such. But if I can just add one more thing to this, officers are meeting next week. One of the categories in our rates remissions policy that's not been used almost yet is the earthquake prone buildings one. And that was put in there to encourage people to go through the process. Now we're looking at that because we sense that ratepayers are going to have no choice but to start going down that path. So we're looking to see whether we actually need that remission, whether it should be diluted. So we'll come back to a committee with our suggestions. But I think it'll probably end up being a working party of councillors working with us to see what we think is appropriate to be in there for rate remissions for earthquake-prone buildings.
Your Worship.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So in terms of rate remission, what I'd like to look at is an action that council staff come back to us around checking whether we are giving rate remissions without knowing about it. So I suspect that there may be some properties that are not on our rating database. And because we're not rating them, we're giving them 100% remission. And I'd just like some advice as to what process could be put in place to check that individual properties, once they've been signed off with it completed, that they've actually been added to our database, because it would seem as though we've found one that hasn't been.
So I'm happy to take that as an action here. Watson talked to me about this the other day, but I'm not sure how that process happens, so I need to follow that process as to whether that doesn't trigger as a result of a new building. So I can take that as an action. I can't give you an answer today.
Yeah, I think it just means that if it gets picked up somewhere.
Councillor Wilson.
Just on the rate remission one, you'll see there, and I think it's a good figure to have, that the new build subdivision rates revisions were $330,000. Whilst that may seem like a significant amount of money, that policy, I'm sure you're all aware, no longer exists. So we can see that, we would expect to see that reflected back the other way in next year's figures, which would further reduce the sum totals accordingly. Would that be, would that just go straight into the total rating pool for the rates remission?
Yeah, so the figure we've got there on page 22 for the financial year just finished, as you say, was 153, which is half of what it was the previous year. We'd expect that to reduce.
Again.
Yeah. But I say earthquake buildings this year may increase remissions for them.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that, just a slight correction to the position around it no longer exists. It still exists in the northern part of our district, not the southern part of our district.
Thank you.
But also remember that rates remission also picks up land for other reasons is not being rated. So landlocked land and those sorts of facilities are not rated by application. So once a year, we decide as a council, and we take in, sometimes more than once a year actually, we take in applications for rate remission because people physically aren't able to access their property, or because the property is such that maybe a tiny triangle of property as it was in Taiapi, where they can have no use of the property for any practical reason. So the rates are generally remitted in that case. So it covers a raft of things.
That was going to be my question around the north piece.
And the fourth point I was going to make is on page, it's the beginning of the capital programme, page 30. You can see that the very top line, year-to-date actuals is 22.5 mil, year-to-date budget's 33. The narrative below that shows the main causes of the underspend. So there was a couple of mil for the Martin Rail Hub. There's low cost, low risk that we've previously spoken about, another 1.5 mil. But importantly, in the next month, officers will bring how much of that underspend is required as a carry forward into this year's budget, noting that the annual plan does include placeholders for some of these figures. Well, we put together this year's capital programme based on what we thought back in March and April, so some of the carry forwards we've already included, we just need tweaking. And there were the 4 points I wanted to
Thank you.
attention to. Thank you.
I'd therefore like to move that the financial snapshot June 2023 be received. Seconded, Councillor Carter. And move to. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We miss a month, this is what happens. So moving to item 10.4, Treasury and Debt 23-24. Mr. Toombs, would you like to talk to this?
Yeah, thank you. So this paper has been put together over a period of time based on requests from various councillors. It's looking at where we think the Treasury and Debt position would be as at the end of the financial year. Just to point out, as we're only at the very beginning of this financial year, most of the figures here are as per the annual plan, and they will change as we go through the financial year. We're all aware there's a whole lot of uncertainty will impact where we end up, because we're only really 6 weeks into the financial year when I put this together. The figures are largely based on annual plan figures, although I have got July figures in there just for reference as well. I think, as we already know, page 34 has got a couple of graphs. The bottom graph is the graph which tends to give us most pressure on our debt ceiling, and it's the one we can actually influence just by borrowing more and keeping it in the bank. I've spoken before about this. As long as we've got 10% of our debt in the bank, then that benchmark will be satisfied.
Councillor Loudon.
I don't understand why. I'd like to understand more about how council decides when to take on more debt, because it doesn't seem to come across this table when council wishes to borrow more money. How is that decision-making process gone about, and who makes that decision?
So if our debt stays within the long-term plan or annual plan, then I decide when to go out and borrow more money. Yeah. And I base that based on my cash flow forecasts, etc., etc. One of the least threatening impacts on that choice is if I borrow money and it sits in the bank, it actually earns interest at the moment at the same rate as I borrow it at. So we've got a very good deal that money in our bank earns the cash rate as interest earned. So that there's low risk there. What I want to avoid is borrowing new chunks every second or third month. So we try and borrow money as per our treasury management policy that'll keep us cash positive for 4, 5, 6 months at least. You've got added complexities in there, and that we don't always know what our monthly accounts payable run's going to be. As I say, it was, I think, 4 million Feb, over 6 million May, down to 3 million June. It fluctuates a lot. So depending on your own personal risk profile, for want of a better word, depends what's the minimum bank balance you'd be comfortable with. And then we get quarterly rates income, of course. Some months we get GST payable, some months we get GST receivable. There's a lot of moving parts in there, so we like to have sufficient in there so that we're comfortable that we can pay our bills. And as I say, because it earns interest at effectively what we're paying it at, it's a lower risk decision than would otherwise be the case.
Yeah, just the last 3 loans are 5-year loans, and they're due to be sort of end in 27, 28 years. Does council pay that back? Do they ask for that money back?
Right. As we'll see when we go through the long-term plan budgets for the next 10 years, whilst the council is generally in growth mode, it will be borrowing money to service, to pay for the growth. That's the first principle. A council is generally only cash surplus when it doesn't build growth assets. So it's just going through renewals, and most capital plans show that years 5 onwards, and that's when the budgets will show debt coming down. Now, if we're still building growth assets in 2027, and we decide, whilst you're in growth mode, we can repay debt, but that would leave us less cash to pay for the growth, so we'd have to borrow more. So it's a cash management process. While you're in growth mode, most councils will just refinance at the end of the debt, so the interest rate will change. It's when you start becoming cash positive, because you're not building growth assets, a council can theoretically repay debt. A lot of councils don't repay debt.
One last one. I've just noticed, like, in your graph on page 34, the available finance, available debt, the trending is, it starts to sort of drop down close to the red line, and then you borrow more money. Put it in the back, it goes back up again, and it then trends back down again. Is this going to be a pattern that we're going to?
Yeah, so I noted in the notes that particular graph, up until February this calendar year, I was using actual figures. The problem with doing that is each quarter you get a spike because the rates come in, and then it disappears again. It goes up and down, up and down. What we need to understand is the underlying position. So what we said we'd start doing from February onwards is using the June year-end predictions to see what our treasury position would be at the June. So that's why they're a lot more stable from February onwards, because we're using June predictions. June's higher than, say, May, because we took out extra borrowings in May and they sat in the bank. So that gave us a higher blue bar in them 2 months.
Thank you, Manager. Yeah, I do actually. I think the one gem in the whole conversation here is the decision-making process for all the budgets and the borrowing and the repayments and how we're going to do all of that is wrapped up in the 10-year plan. So the stuff that we're busy with right now is super important because it sets our direction for the next 10 years, how we're going to manage our finances. And as long as we stick to what you have approved as council now, Dave can get on and do his thing. But the decision-making tool in all of this, 10-year plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If I go, I know it changes every few minutes. If we go to the top of page 33, the net current treasury position of 11.1 million, as of what time in July is that? Because it doesn't reconcile, in my view, with the figures that I had us having 31 million of long-term debt and 14 million of assets, so ending up with a 17 million. I think it's a timing thing, but am I correct?
Okay, so you're talking about bottom of page 32, top of page 33. This is liquidity, which doesn't include that. So liquidity is basically your cash reserves. How much spare cash have you got at the moment? That's covered in section 5.
Yeah.
So our annual
Yeah,
plan.
okay, I haven't transferred over from page 32. Right. Yep, got it. Thank you.
Just
Oh,
one
thank you.
question, it's possibly more for the team approach here from Carol and Dave. So noting the fact that we are already to our LTP process, and I think your explanation, Dave, is exactly what that was part of our LTP process to Councillor Loudon. When do we see these things all starting to come together at that point? When are we, how many months off are we seeing that as part of our LTP process from a workshopping point of view?
We're starting from 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time. We're starting to put flesh on the bones. The capital program is one of the key drivers to all of this. So Arno's working 25 hours a day at the moment, putting that together.
Yes, 9 days a week.
Yes, yeah. So the capital program, officers suggested capital program, the infrastructure strategy essentially.
Yes, correct. And one of the things that I would say that those numbers that you bring back to our workshopping around where we think we're going to be with our LTP plans will be different numbers than these because they'll have a greater degree of accuracy to bring forward because we would have completed our year end in more detail. Would that be correct in saying that, to know where we're going in our capital?
Yeah, look, I think that there's obviously with a 10-year plan, there's a whole degree of uncertainty. But yeah, based on what we know at the moment, Arno and Adina will put together their capital program.
For you, Madam Chair, yeah, I would agree with Councillor Wilson. I think the starting point is more accurate because we're further down the line in the next financial year, so we've got a better view of where we ended. So the starting point, I think, is more accurate, and what we're aiming at is September, October to start talking to you, councillors, about some of these numbers that are coming through.
That's what I was looking for.
So the plan is end of October, November, before Christmas, to have certainty on those budget numbers over the 10 years.
Thank you.
Councillor Morn.
Probably already answered. I'm sure you'll answer it again, Mr. Toon. I see our current debt's 31 million.
Yeah.
But our year-end debt is stated as going to be 53 million. What do we need the extra $22 million for in the next, well, retrospective, because the year end's finished?
Yeah, the annual plan's got a capex of 36 million.
Yeah.
So that will drive a lot of that's growth assets.
Oh, yeah, but is that for 2024, this liquidity ratio that you've got year-end debt?
Yeah,
at
okay, so
53 million.
Liquidity is section 4. Section 5 includes debt. And what the annual plan has got for this financial year, as you point out, is a year-end debt of 53 million.
Oh, so that's for the 23,
That's for
24
10 months' time, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Calkin.
I feel like I'm sort of getting to a position where some of the questions feels like it's going to at the moment, or the, I guess, just trying to understand this is, we've got a CapEx program which is, as a result of some challenges throughout the year, behind on, yet the debt has still gone up. And we've got a projected debt level at the end of this annual plan of 53 million. And that accounted for some big projects that are unlikely to be completed within the next annual plan as well. Do we have a feeling, or what is the feeling that our debt level is going to be at come the end of 2024? Are we on track for 53 million of debt, even though our capital expenditure program is unlikely to be delivered?
The year-end debt figure as per the annual plan is really the end result of a formula. So starting cash plus new cash less cash going out gives you year-end debt. there's plenty of uncertainty around some of them figures, but one of the key figures in that equation is cash going out, CapEx program. So if we spend the CapEx annual budget and all the other income and revenue streams as per the annual plan, then yeah, our year end debt will be 53 mil.
Councillor Allen.
I said before that I was concerned that there was a discrepancy between borrowings and what we were spending on CapEx. How's operating expenses contributing towards our debt?
It's not.
It's not. Where's the debt coming from?
Where expenditure is greater than depreciation, you're getting into that depreciation discussion again. Where you spend more than you get in, that goes up. So we're spending more on our CapEx than we are rating for depreciation. It's probably easier to bring it down to a cash basis, and that reconciliation I spoke about earlier, I can provide, or I can go through. It might be easier to go back to the cash flow statement and the funding impact statement that's included in our annual plan and our annual reports. That clearly shows why debt goes up. So I'm more than happy to go offline and take you through the cash flow statement and funding impact statement. It's got cash coming in, less cash going out. It shows where the cash is going out to, and where cash going out is greater than cash coming in, debt goes up.
Councillor Loudon, if I can just say a couple of comments. The operational should be pretty much fixed. It shouldn't be contributing to a debt. But some of the discussion that you're talking about is really well teased out in that long-term plan thing, because when you get into that, like in a workshop base, you'll be able to balance exactly what you're talking about and understand where that comes from. But your point about the operational, the moment your operational is costing you debt, it's a flag.
I totally agree, and that's why I raised the point. But I just need to understand where the debt's coming from, and how it's going to impact on a long-term plan process. I think there needs to be some questions in that process.
So a workshop's planned?
Yes, we've got 2 workshops in September. They are focusing on some aspects of financials, in particular some of the early CapEx discussions around this table where we're seeking input from you, and then also in October and November. So there's numerous points that we're working to provide you with this information.
If I may, Councillor, before you speak, if I can refer you to maybe offline, look at page 67 of this year's annual plan. It clearly shows cash inflows from operating activities, predicted to be 14 million surplus. Cash flows from CapEx is minus 35, so there's a debt increase of 20. So page 67 is probably a good starting point.
Councillor Moore.
Okay, still on debt. Because going back to our activity performance report, and we've got 8.3 million in the red effectively on our council activities, whole of council. Where does that $8.3 million come from to balance the books in effect, you know? I know you'll say you'll get some back from roading grants or whatever, but, you know, we were budgeting for a 3.7 million on whole of council. Now we're 8.3 million whole of council. How is that funded, you know?
Okay, so you're talking about page 20 of the agenda papers?
Yeah, so whole of council, just taking in all the activities that we do.
Yeah, yeah.
So $5 million, you know, below budget, you know, off what we budgeted, but still, you know, there's 8.7 million there. Whether, I'm just thinking, is this as a business, if I'm 8.7 in a hole at the end of end of the year, which I am because I'm a dairy farmer. That's a joke. Yeah, I just wonder where I'm going to get that money from to get things back to square one.
So if you start off just by focusing on the far left column, the year-to-date actuals, we got 46 million in.
Yep.
We spent, not the 50 million, because that includes 16 mil of depreciation, we spent 34 mil. So in a cash perspective, which is why I was referring to page 67 of the annual plan, it's quite often easier to look at this in cash terms.
So take the depreciation off.
Yeah, we get a cash surplus there of what, 11 million, give or take,
Oh,
right? And that was used to fund 22 mil worth of capex, which is why that went up. Now the budget figures, they're looking at it from a different angle. There's lots of timing differences in there. So when you get a budget variance as a timing difference, it's not really a biggie. It's where there's a budget variance, which is a permanent difference. That's what you need to make decisions based on.
I would have thought a $5 million change in the budget was quite significant.
Not when 4 million of that is just going to be dropped into July, as an example.
So I think we can take this discussion further in a workshop setting, and be encouraged to have a look at page 67 of the annual plan. Your worship.
Yeah, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. And Councillor Calkin's comments around, analysing the debt position against the capital spend still to be spent in that year is a really relevant one. And it's almost as though there's a finance 101 stuff coming through. Yeah, I think it's been a good conversation.
Okay, so.
I wonder, sorry,
Yes.
Chair, I wonder if this is a process that Mr Toombs and Philip Jones can take us through.
Can we take that as an undertaking, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say though, one of the issues for local government, I think, is the other scenario is that local government's very poor in spending all of their capital in that year. And so the auditors, and I don't know about this council, but the auditors generally have it as a target every year to try and make sure that they're spending all of that infrastructural capital asset money in that year, because the moment you don't, then you've actually rated for something that you're not spending. But that is one of the auditors' focuses for this year again. But it's quite hard to manage, isn't it?
Yep.
And particularly if you've had some events, it's hard to manage. But the discrepancy should be getting narrower. That's the view of the audit anyway, which is picking up on some of your points. So getting that right in the first place is quite a key.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What it leads on to is this discussion that we will have in September and October as we go through to Christmas in our LTP planning, is being realistic about what we are looking at and our ability to deliver in the current markets, contract supply, all of that type of stuff. And those will be very real contracts to form the basis of a strong LTP going forward. So I agree 100%.
And I think if I just add to that, if you talk to a dean, there's a hell of a lot of projects that are actually on there. And what you're going to have to determine is whether we either prioritise those or whether you can handle all that are on your plate. And getting the budgets right for them, as you know, is actually a key. And some of them, when those budgets were estimated some time ago, and probably will need updated, so you've got a proper view as to what's going on.
Agree 100%.
And in my mind, the test of success is if we don't have to consult on the annual plan in that following year. So we'll see.
Don't ever put that in any performance appraisal, because there's things that happen and you're never going to achieve that.
On that note, there's a recommendation there that the report Treasury and Debt 23-24 be received.
Moved, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Calkin, all in favour. Carried. And we move to the item 10.5, QV report. Mr Toombs.
Yeah, thank you.
this report's provided for general information. Being August, July, there's not a lot of financial year transactions so far, but it's there for information.
I'm happy just to move.
So I was just interested, the more lengthy information we used to get, are you not receiving that, or did we just decide not to include it? I quite enjoyed being a valuer. I quite enjoyed that. I enjoyed the sales information in terms of it was helpful to seeing what was happening at each end of Martin and the rural categories. Yeah, is that information still available or not?
That's a separate report, I believe, that
Okay.
last time we presented it, we identified that there was some anomalies in the reporting that meant that what you're looking at wasn't necessarily statistically correct. There were things in there that could throw out.
For sure, like if it's a non-market sale.
Yeah.
However, there was a lot of, it's still predominantly markets related, in my view.
Okay. I can speak to our IT manager and bring it back.
What's the committee's thinking?
Could I comment if I may? I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that there was an active decision made of council that additional reporting came at a cost. I could be wrong and would happy to let it lie on the table, but I believe the additional level of reporting may have come at a cost, and council actively chose not to take that. But
Can you clarify that?
may be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that would be much of a cost because they've got that, pretty much there. But the two interesting things I found were good to see that the number of ratepayers in our districts have grown 6%. And we are valuing as at the 1st of August 2023, so it seemed to be up the other day for discussion. Yeah. Therefore,
So I think just to clarify, that's 0.06%
yeah.
as opposed to 6%.
Oh, beg your pardon.
And that's a 4-week, 5-week movement figure.
So the 6%, it's 6% the bottom figure?
I'm looking at the figure alongside top left-hand corner on page 37.
Yeah, I'm looking at the third one down.
Oh, that's increase of 6 properties.
Oh, 6 number, it's not a percentage.
Oh, no, the two above a percentage.
Okay, thank you, right. Okay. All those in favour? Carried. 10.6, that local government funding agency report.
Move receipt of.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Carlton. In favour? Carried. Any discussion around the report? I think that is tabled. Okay. Page 54. Statement of service performance for the 22-23 year. Welcome to the table.
Oh, this is my one.
Oh.
Karen's doing the next
Okay. Carol.
Thank you. Just presenting this final end of year report. So it finalised at the end of June this year. We have made significant IT changes to allow us to bring this in a way more timely manner, which is why you're receiving it in August, whereas last year I think you received it in December. So that's been really pleasing to see. So there's some highlights listed through the report, but we're enough of us around the room if you have any questions that we can answer for you in terms of the actual reports.
Your worship.
Page 78, around about a third of the types of feedback are complaints. But if I go to the comments.
Oh, that's the next report, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry if I skipped over. Sorry, my apology. That's the public feedback one.
Can I make a comment, Chair, on
yes,
on this report, Your Worship? Just
I'll go back for a recheck.
So when you look at this at the first instance and you see some red dots, to me it's how do we get almost a separate report that comes back without creating too much work, or somehow to say that we've identified what these things are and this is where we think we can see some improvement for next year, because the red dots, whilst they are the red dots, to me they're an opportunity. So I just wonder, to look at this report in its entirety, it doesn't really show, and there may be some things that are actually red dots because they're simply outside of our control, and I think we should identify that. And I wonder, do we see this in another level at some stage?
I was just going to make pretty much exactly the same point, so I'm not a councillor, but some of them, I picked up that road safety one about that fatal crashes.
Yeah.
In my view, that one should be fatal crashes where there's a fault of the roading network. So and the fact that 2 have been killed, I mean, that's no fun at all, but it's obviously related to poor performance or drinking or something like that. So is that a truly council performance or performance standard or not?
So what I'd answer to that is we've got an opportunity to change some of the statement of service performance through the long-term plan, because these are directly out of the last long-term plan, where there should be some clarification around exactly what Kevin has just outlined. We should actually update that, and we've got the opportunity to do that through the long-term plan. But to answer your question as well, that's why we try and include narrative on those, which is really important to be read alongside, especially the red dots, because there are instances where it is in the water supply area, it's totally out of our control. There's other things in here which are about satisfaction and things like that, and we've tried to include the narrative to make it explainable. Yes, we've got to report it as read because the measure is not met, but there's a reason around it. And your point about is the opportunities then to actually make some improvements? Yeah, there always is. And I think that's what we listen to. And that's why looking at the statement of service performance when we bring those through to you in the long-term plan is again really important.
It's critical.
Yeah.
This is one of the best measures for you as a council.
Yeah.
Just one quick further turn. Sorry, I see your hand up there. These are self-imposed measures,
Some of them
and some of them are
mandatory.
regulatory standards that we must meet.
Some are mandatory, like the water ones. Hopefully that got passed through legislation that they're coming out, the mandatory measures, but there's also other mandatory measures that are in here that will remain in the long-term plan, but we've got discretion around the non-mandatory.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just a comment about one of the fatal crashes. I believe it's not so much road condition or poor road condition, but road design that may be an issue with Makuru Road.
Well, if it's road design, then it's legitimate being here.
I think that's what's emerging.
I'd just like to comment on the regulatory building consents and resource consents. So although they didn't meet the 100% target, I feel given everything that's been thrown at us, 305 out of 316 is an outstanding, is a good result. And thank you to staff for that. Similarly, in the consenting regime, there may be perception out there in the public that things were very slow, but that would not point to that.
And that's a high measure as well, that 100%
Mm.
is a very high measure, yeah.
Of no further discussion, I'd like to move that the report statement of service performance 2022-23 be received. And seconded, Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Carried. Sorry, Galen, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Page 17. The public feedback and performance report, July 23.
No, I'm scared now.
I think His Worship had a question.
Sure.
Right, yeah, a third of the comments, the summary of the report showed dissatisfaction, but not a single comment showed dissatisfaction. So that implies to me either there are comments that were not fit to print, or what, I'm not sure.
So reminding you that there's different mechanisms that we're reporting on. The Career MI one does have the commentary on the next page, if it was provided. So you've got page 78 and 79 and 80 are all linked. So they're the ones directly off the website feedback and the QR codes. The other stuff comes from the Happy or Not system. Yeah, which is very positive in that Happy or Not system. To be honest, I think my personal, apart from one person who I did black out his comment about a certain evolution, the comments, they're normally a complaint that they've found something in one of our facilities that they're alerting us to, which is actually a good thing, because then we can react to it really quickly.
That was my point. The negatives are a chance for us to actually be critical and look. And I absolutely understand some of the negatives are people venting for other reasons.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, quick question, and I don't have Councillor Wong's mathematical brain for statistics here. Responses at 154, my head tells me that's up. Is it, without me going back and looking? Top of the page there, responses. Said 150, 100, sorry, 500 and 500, yeah, 514.
Yes, you're right, it was up on last time.
It just struck me as being up, yeah.
The reason it is up, I would think, is because we've moved the devices. We had the one out the front at reception that we've now put into the Martin Library, and it's been used more there.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right, they are up.
And also in July, we've had, like for the libraries, we have the school holiday programs, but we also have dog registration as well, so there's more people coming through.
But they can pay their dog registration in the library too, can they?
It's Tai Happy and Te Mata Pihu.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Carpenter?
Just a comment on the two community services MOU dashboards. I think they're a brilliant update, thank you. And really highlights the great stuff that they're both doing, so thank you.
And thanks to Leah for the design, and we've tied it in with the well-beings, as you'll see this time.
Chair, could I just make one more comment, and I think it's worthy of sharing. I was at a function recently, which is not unusual for me to be found at functions. But I was at a function recently, and someone who didn't necessarily know who I was in the role of deputy mayor and being, third term councillor, approached me and had a chat, and somebody said, "Oh, well, that's the deputy mayor," and they started yakking. Of course, then all things suddenly lead to council matters, which is a hard conversation to get out of sometimes at a function in social engagement. But this person was absolutely glowing of the front of house staff, and I have actually relayed that message to the front of house team. And I think it's really, really important that it gets said sometimes, because this lady couldn't speak highly of not only the council front of house staff, but just what council does. And I think it's really, really worthwhile sharing that from sometimes, because we can tend to look at some of these ports, for example, and all we see is red dots. Behind red dots there's opportunities to improve, but also there's a significant number of green dots. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was a really, really lovely comment, and it was genuinely reported, and I have let the front of house know that, because I think it is important that they get recognised for that. So just sharing that with the committee.
Awesome. So if we move,
A comment regarding the toilets at BP Complex and Bulls. Considering it's not ours, I don't think we look after it. That's a really good comment.
Yes, we do look after
We
them.
do look after it.
Yes, we have the lease for those toilets.
Still going, is it? Yeah, no, brilliant.
that's wrong.
Could I follow that with the comments with the Taihape situation, the complaints there? Aileen, care to comment?
The Toy Street toilets are cleaned twice daily. During the holiday periods, peak time, they're cleaned 3 times a day. And I know the parks team empty the bins and do the garden surrounds first thing in the morning. There's about four rubbish bins in that area. One thing we are doing is we've realised that there is no contact phone number, and perhaps some people, they may prefer, like if it's a local, they know to contact the council, but for people passing through, so now we're putting up a small signage that if there is an issue with the toilets, for various ways to contact us. But yeah, you can clean them, and honestly, an hour later.
So moved.
Thank you. So seconder, please. Seconded councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, everyone. That's the close of our meeting. And I would just like to let you know that councillor Wong will be sitting in this seat next month. So, yeah, good luck, councillor Wong.
Good luck to all of you.